This okay. I absolutely love this series. I was able to see 4 episodes. And
Nice.
you as Victor and the show in general, it takes you on this roller coaster ride where I don't know where anything is going and I trust no one all at the same time. And unlike other shows, like this takes place between 93, 94, 95, and they jump back and so that you're able to follow the story, but there's different versions of different time periods. So we
Yeah.
start off with you and you're like this really sweet, adorable kid, a little nerdy. And then by the time we get to like 95, you're like dreadlocks and you're like more serious. The tones are darker. What is
Yeah.
going on with your character?
Man, that's such a huge part of what makes this show so special is the jumping back and forth. Because, like you said, you're like dying to know what happened, right? And you see all the different changes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it makes it all the experience for the audience that much better because, like, now you know things about these characters in certain years that they themselves don't even know. Like, you see them in 95 and they're at this place, and then you see them in 93 and you're like, that's insane. They have no idea where they're headed. And you're just wondering how they got there. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think you follow that the entire season basically is, we're trying to unfold the truth, about this thing that happened. You've also discovered, all these different things that shape these teenagers into these people, you know what I mean? Like who
Mhm.
they become by the end of this roller coaster. So
Right.
yeah, man. Vincent's journey specifically is just another, like on this show, everyone has secrets, everyone has, their challenges, whether it's directly related to, what we're focused on, which is, how did, what happened to Kate Wallace, what's
Mhm.
going on. Outside of that, there's so many other things and like beautiful moments that I think happen that, send these characters into different places. So yeah, I'm happy you noticed that because,
Yes.
it's gonna be a huge part of like this entire experience.
Right.
Definitely.
So when they presented you with the script, is everything kind of in chronological order? Do you know what's going on throughout the years, or is it just that snippet for your scene?
See, this show is so interesting. It's a blessing actually. As just as much as it is, like a hassle for them to pull things together because we actually got these scripts just like, like while we were filming, like in the process of shooting the show. So you didn't really know what was going to happen next. And I think
Mm.
that also creates more room for collaboration because when things are locked in and sort of set in stone, you can't really say, oh, well, this, and, throw your ideas out there. But I think with a show like this, that time jumps so much, it was like a blessing in disguise that they weren't, all
Mhm.
locked in at the same time because that made room, like I said, for collaboration. And now you're able to, now we're, on a like a little bit later in the season and we're starting to realize that this would be better here. And if you move this, take this scene from this episode, and then that ends up here, So I think it's actually great that things aren't, so locked
Right.
in and set in stone. So yeah, we did get them like, just as we, we're shooting one episode and then in the middle of that we get the scripts and find out what's gonna happen, in the next episode. So yeah, it's I don't know, it was fun that way for me
Right.
as opposed to just knowing everything that happens and then trying to,
Mhm.
just work through that naturally. Yeah, it's interesting, man.
So as an actor, because there's such a range with Victor, where we see him as like the
Vincent.
Vincent. Sorry,
Vincent. No, it's okay.
different
Yeah,
V.
no, no,
Victor,
I
Vincent,
just want to make sure we
Vinny,
Vinny.
Vincent. So with your character, because there's so this differences throughout the year with him, how do you prepare for that kind of role? Because it's like everything thrown at you, but you kind of get it at once.
Mm. It's either you prepare a lot or you don't prepare at all. And what I mean by don't prepare at all is in the sense of just really understanding like where they are, because everyone of course changes in the show. And I
Mhm.
think, to think that people, like, everyone changes, in a different year, obviously everyone changes every year, but some people's journeys are different. I'd like to think that Vince doesn't really change until the 95, as opposed to Jeanette Turner, who starts changing as early as 93. And then you see Mallory '94, she's a completely different person, all these things.
Right.
But I think that yeah, I think Vince's like big change was '95, and I think preparing for that is like, it's definitely a challenge, and that challenge is what kind of drew me into being a
Mhm.
part of this project. Obviously, when something is challenging, it kind of catches your attention, and you're wondering like, how can I do this? And I think just on screen, off screen, like just the creative aspect of it, like the acting, the wardrobe, the makeup, the hair, the everything goes and like ties into one another, because the years have different tones, and they
Mhm.
look different and feel different. So you can't wear something in a specific year, because it would just upset that. And I
Right.
think just the trust and just the collaboration just made it a lot easier, because now you have people with these great visuals, and you get to see how it feels to be this person around this time. And yeah, I just think as much as it was challenging, it was definitely, the process of collaboration definitely like made it easier, a lot easier than
Right.
I
Mhm.
saw it to be.
Now you're young. This takes place in the '90s. I'm going to just assume you wasn't alive then, by your freshness and clear skin. So
I thank you, by the way. Okay. I'm joking.
so
But
yeah.
I came in just at the end of the '90s, I guess. Yeah, like right at the end. I get teased for it a lot by I have older siblings, and they
Mhm.
were like, early '90s babies. They got to, all the cool '90s cartoons, and all that
Right.
stuff, and did all the fun stuff in the '90s. They have the cool baby pictures from the '90s and stuff like that. But I think this is definitely one to like do a show that has some sort of period, like like sort of element to it, like some like another era, like let alone the '90s, which is just like, to me, like when I think about the '90s, I think like, whoa, like pop culture, everything is just so like at its like it's like on the come up. We're
Mhm.
going into the 2000s, all this new technology, all these new things, and like the dial up, the internet, and all those things are are like sort
Right.
of like, oh, like industry is booming. So I think, yeah, like it being in the '90s was like, just made it just that much more awesome and like fun, because like everyone wants to experience that, and
Mhm.
this gave me the opportunity to do that at the same time, like through something you know I'd love to do at the end of the day.
Right.
So
So
yeah.
did you kind of like go to your families like, what is this dial-up system they call this computer?
I felt like growing up, we had some pretty, like, earlier in my life, we had a lot of like outdated technology. From like my grandma and like stuff like that. And I think seeing that already, like
Mhm.
already when I think the '90s, I already think about those things, and certain pieces of furniture, or just certain, what I mean,
Right.
that you just remember from that time, and my mind instantly goes there. So I definitely, saw those things like in my family, and like with some of the things that are still in my mom's household, like memorabilia and stuff like that she has. And then um also just, yeah, the creatives, like the writers and the directors on the show, and the producers, everyone has so much great information and so many great tools, and just all this knowledge about that time period, that they just sort of just
Right.
let us have it, and they let us, just they trusted us with their memories, and with those precious memories and those things that they remember. And I think yeah, trust is like really important, because it really translated onto screen, because now it
Right.
feels like these are really kids from that time who know what these things are.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you one thing, half of those things I was like, what are we using? What is going on here? Somebody explains to me what's going on
Oh
with
gosh.
that.
So I was wondering also, we get somewhat some glimpses, we would say in, like, in the first 4 episodes, but mainly also we get one in first episode of your life, and we kind of get to see that there's a possibility of a little romance. There's a little googly eyes in the store. So is there anything that you can reveal without revealing everything about your character that you want the fans to know going in?
um it's I'll just say this. How do I though? It's so I think that
Mhm.
like I said, everyone has their secrets, and everyone has these like everyone's living this sort of double life in a sense, like
Right.
around each other, then away from each other. They're like totally different people. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting. It's going to really blow people away, when you see who Vince makes this connection with, because this person is the complete opposite of, who he is
Mhm.
and who he's identified to be, like as like his entire life. And I think when they make that connection and they realize they have all of these things, in
Mhm.
common, and they just identify with each other in so many different ways, it's like, I don't know, it's really amazing. The show, you see a lot of that. You see a lot of like relationships changing, and different people developing friendships and friendships ending and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know, I don't really want to give it away. I think people are really going to be shocked, because
Right.
at first you get the impression that they're, that you don't really know what's going to happen between them, and you just think that they're going to do something terrible or something, or what I mean, you don't really know
Mhm.
what they're doing, and then you realize that, like, wow, they're, that's really beautiful. I never saw that coming, but wow, it's
Mhm.
really special. I'm really excited for everyone to see it, actually, man.
Okay. So what would you say, if you can, would be his best and worst qualities?
His best and worst qualities are the same thing, and that's that he's such a pure, like, loyal human being. It's good because it helps Jeannette in her case, because he kind of has her back all the
Mhm.
time, no matter what, whether he thinks she's right or she's wrong. It's something that's just embedded in his DNA as a human being, is how he was raised to, always look out for your peeps. And Jeannette is more than a peep to him. She's like, his sister in a sense. And the other side of that is not really, looking out for himself in a sense, kind of looking out for everyone else too much. And you'll see later on in the season, as things unfold, what I mean by when I say he discovers himself in 95, because there are events that happen over 93, and then there's an event that happens in the year of 94 that really makes him, stop and go, okay, like, you have everyone's backs, but like, does everyone have, what I mean? Is everyone, all this, I guess all the drama kind of casts a shadow over the things that he's dealing with as a person as well, because he's always looking out for everyone, lying for people, sticking up for, other characters when, things
Right.
get shaky between their relationships, trying to, I'd like to think of Vince's personality type as like this, like, mediator. He's like the mediator. He just wants everything to be, like,
Right.
okay, wants everything to just move forward, like, there should be no trauma, but yeah, it doesn't. And yeah, unfortunately, there's like consequences to that, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, I hope
So
I answered your question.
you did, you did,
Yeah.
you did.
So
So with the pilot episode, I was wondering, when you right when you was reading that script, if you can take yourself back there, and there is this twist. It goes one way, where I originally thought this was like a murder mystery, and then we get, this big shocking twist at the end, where to me it just seems like it's way more cold and vicious than that. What
yeah,
what was your initial reaction?
I told them I wanted to do it right away. Like, I,
Mhm.
I mean, it's just an audition at the end of the day. So
Right.
you don't really know these things, and you can't really, get too excited. But at the same time, I think this was just one that I was just like, you know what, like, this is really, really, really interesting. And whoever's mind this like came, out of,
Mhm.
I really want to develop a relationship with this person, because it's so special and so unique and just so original, and like authentic. And I just felt like, if it's worth, the opportunity. And I think, like you said, reading the script and seeing that twist at the end, and it just not just being, oh, like, she's murder mystery, like, let's find out what happened, and then you see her at the end of the pilot, and she drops that bomb, and you're like, whoa, you want to know more. And I think before I even thought of it, like, as an actor, I wanted to know more just as like the consumer, as just like, somebody reading
Right.
the scripture, just as people will be, watching the show. I just wanted to know more. On top of that, I wanted to be a part of it. And yeah, 2 plus
Right.
2 just equals 4. And I think those two went together, and I just came across this opportunity at the right time, and it happened, and I'm just so grateful to be here.
Right. So as you were saying before, that you get the scripts when they come, so you don't fully have the answers for everything. So
Yeah,
initially going in to this project, did your opinions change about any character, any kind of storyline that was later on presented?
constantly every episode I feel like it changes, because everyone's just up to something and you have no idea. And I mean, one, the acting is so amazing in this show, but two, I think there's such a like to the elements of like to the characters themselves, and just like the choices that they make, they're so real, and the things
Mhm.
that are happening are so real and so true that like when they make those choices, like you're kind of you're believing them in a sense, and then you find out that they were lying to you, and then it's like, what I mean, you develop a real relationship with these people, and you're like, how dare you, like I trusted you. You know what I mean? So and then like by episode whatever, like later in the season, you're kind of like, you don't know what to believe.
Right.
You're kind of just like, you get the understanding that it's like it's a real free-for-all, and it's really about whose truth you resonate with more. It's not about who was right or wrong, because at the end of the day, these are just teenage kids who are just making choices. How can we hold or like pass judgment on them for the things that they don't even know, like the impact of the consequences that come with the choices that they're making. They have no idea. So you're watching these things, and it's kind of like, to me, more than it is like, wow, like I can't believe they do that. It's more so like, that's sad that they have no idea that they're doing this, and it's causing all of this to happen, in this
Right.
completely different world that they have no idea about, just because she wanted to be cool, or she wanted to look pretty, or she wanted to have a hot boyfriend, or she wanted to be the popular girl. She has no idea that this is affecting someone else's
Right.
identity and life, and just mine entirety. Man, it's really sad. It's really heartbreaking. I feel
Right.
like that's one way I describe the show. It's really heartbreaking to me.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So you've been acting for a little while now. I was wondering what would be like the greatest lesson that you've learned or advice that someone has given you that you're able to apply on this series.
Mm. Like prior to joining the series that I
Yes.
applied to going into it.
Yes.
Um, just for me, this is my first time being a series regular on a show,
Hmm.
and having the responsibility of, you know, because you do guest stars and things like that, and you kind of know that your job and the job of like that character that you're playing is definitely to launch someone else's story arc, you know what I mean, into
Hmm.
another place. And I think with this, it was a unique opportunity for me, because I was like, man, I have the opportunity to really tell someone's story and like keep going with it and build
Right.
so much behind it, because it's gonna have to continue, And it was such a challenge. And I think going into it, um, a really great friend of mine, he got some really great advice from somebody he worked with, someone who's been in this industry for a long time, and they just basically told him like, similar to me, like when I started this job, I was so nervous. I had no idea what to expect going into it.
Mhm.
I had no idea what was expected of me as, an actor. And I think they just told me, they just instilled in my mind, like, hey, like, you got the job for a reason. You're here, and they trust you with their material. And you know this character better than anyone. So just trust yourself, trust your instincts, and just do the job. That's literally all your job is as an actor, is to convey
Mhm.
the message to the audience, properly. And I think as long as you execute that, you don't really have anything, to worry about besides like personal, things that you're like, oh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. Besides that, there's no real, like wrong way to like do it,
Right.
because I think that, they chose this cast for a reason, because everyone, created such unique ways of displaying these characters, like colors and ranges and like emotions, in a way that like not a lot of other people might have done, or like choices that they would have made, or or just saying things in people that connect to these characters like so directly, because there's so many things on the show, and I'm like, man, it's so insane, it's so perfect that they would choose this person to do that or play that role, because like it just goes together so perfectly, like they execute it so well, it's so natural for them.
Right.
So yeah. So just trusting in my ability, I guess I would say, to shorten it.
Right. So how would you describe the character's perfect day, if you could?
Vince's perfect day.
Yeah, Vincent.
Vince, Vince's perfect day is waking up, um, waking up, loading film into his camera, going downstairs, eating breakfast that his grandma made, um, heading out the door, hopping on his bike, riding right across the street, knocking on Jeannette's door, getting her on her bike, riding down to Mallory's house, knocking on her door, and now they're in the streets and just kind of just spending the day with his two best friends, I think. Um, Vince to me is just such a, I feel like he was built on such a great foundation that he doesn't really need much to like be happy. I think as long as everyone around him is happy. And I think he's one of those people who very intensely like feel the things that, you know what I mean, which is why he so deeply cares for Jeannette the way he does, because Jeannette displays all these emotions, and she's a Cancer. I think her zodiac sign is a Cancer, so her emotions are so, they're
Mhm.
out there, and he absorbs all of that and he feels those things. And I think that he just wants everything to be okay. So I think, riding with his friends, hitting the mall, you know, just riding through the neighborhood, just living, taking life, one day at a time, and not necessarily trying to change who he is, or his environment or his daily routine. I think he is so happy with that, and
Right.
that's just enough for him.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
separating yourself from the show, do you think Jeannette is guilty?
Ooh, that's a. I don't like that word. I don't know, because guilty carries such a heavy, like, I feel like it carries like a negative, definitely a negative connotation. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
I don't know if you can say she's guilty. She's just she's very ignorant of the choices she's making, right? Because it's like, I like to describe it as like, okay, someone who starts gambling
Mhm.
and they hit really big their first time, and then the next couple times, like, they realize like, oh, it's just beginner's luck. I think Jeanette didn't have that experience. She started doing dangerous things and she got away with it. And then she did more, and then she kept getting away with it. She kept getting away with it. And I don't think her consequences or the repercussions didn't catch up to her until it was like this crazy thing. I think her first experience with seeing how her decisions, impacted like the world around her was like bigger than anyone could have ever imagined, you know what I mean, or asked for, their first time having to deal with these like things, because
Right.
as teenagers sometimes, you go through things and you learn lessons from them. I don't think that was her case. I think she just kept getting away with it, and it just developed into something that was so normalized and just so, just normal for her in her daily routine, that when it finally caught up to her, you know, how can you judge whether or not she really believes that she's innocent or not, or whether or not she really did it? Because she's been getting away with it for so long and she's never had to deal with these repercussions. So when it catches up to her, she's probably, is gonna
Mhm.
be like, well, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm just being a teenage girl. I just wanted to be cool and popular. I didn't know that, like, all these things that I was doing was upsetting the universe so much, but it does. And it's
Right.
like, it's cringy to see, because it's like upsetting that she has no idea, because you have the adults on the show that are dealing with their own,
Mhm.
marriages and lives and things like that, that they're overlooking some of the most important years of like these teenage girls' lives, like their, early high school to like, their high school years. Like, that's like the last time, like, that's like the last time, like, of, I feel like, a teenage girl's life, like having a daughter that you would like, it's the last time you want to stop paying attention. You know what I mean? Like, these are very important years. I feel like those are the years that you really should,
Right.
be reassuring, like, that they are 100% perfect the way they are, because they're gonna start asking questions. And I think, yeah, the most upsetting thing to me is the scene
Uh-huh.
in the pilot. I don't know, can I talk about the pilot
Yes,
real
yes,
quick?
yes. You can talk about
Okay, cool.
it. Yes.
Um, the most upsetting thing to me is the scene in the pilot, where Jeanette Turner is she's in the kitchen and she sees her dad in the kitchen, and he tells her to make a wish if that's what she really wants, to be pretty. I think that just kind of, like, confirmed like all of her insecurities, you know what I
Right.
mean? I think me in that situation, I'm so young, I'm putting myself in that situation already, but already thinking about it, I think me in that situation, I wouldn't have gone about it that way. I think that was kind of a huge part of what, kind of like for her, it was like, oh, like he's telling me I can wish for these things. So maybe I'm not already these things. I think had her father just like, showed her just like, sweetie, like, you know what I mean? You don't, but instead he says, you can have those things if you want to. You just have to,
Right.
go out there and like get them. But like, no, that's like, that's to me, that was like, but that was like, not to think that that was like intentional. I'm sure he didn't have any bad intention, but that was something that like sort of sent, her in like the wrong direction. And like, to tie it back to your question, like, how do you call someone whose experience was that
Right.
guilty?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they have no idea that what they're doing is like wrong.
Right.
That's how I think about it.
No, it
I
makes
guess.
sense. So
Yeah.
throughout the series, there's a lot of things that happen. Will Vincent kind of reach his breaking point with Jeannette? Do you feel?
Mm, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I don't want to. I think you should tune in to find that one out. I think all of these characters have their moments where they're
Uh-huh.
best friends and then they're not so much best friends. But I think that you'll find with Vince's relationship to Jeannette to be very, very, very like stronger than any other relationship between Jeannette and some whoever else. You know what I mean? That's a bond that can't be broken. I feel like it'll be very, very difficult to get them on the other side of the fence, of each other and have them look at each other any type of way. So um I personally don't feel like there is, but I feel like there might be moments that the audience, feels like, wow, like maybe they shouldn't be friends, or maybe this person doesn't have the other's best interests, and maybe this person should look out for the other more because this person has their back. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
things like that. Yeah, I don't want to really spoil it though.
Understood. So lastly, if you could describe this series using just 3 words, what would you say?
Mm, it's perplexing. It's definitely exhilarating, and it's just heartbreaking. I feel like
Hmm.
in the end, it's very heartbreaking.
Oh gosh.
But it's exciting though. It's so exciting. It's I don't want to
Mhm.
put anybody down. As people are probably listening, like like, oh, I don't want to be heartbroken. But no, it's really beautiful and like special. And I think it's such an exciting roller coaster that I cannot wait for people to hop on. And I think once you hop on it, it's going to be so hard to get off of it.
Right.
You just gonna want to find out more and more and more information.
Right. Exactly. Thank you so much for speaking with
Of
me.
course, of
I
course.
love the show so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. It's always a
No.
blessing having the opportunity to, praise this cast and this
Right.
show and the project because it's so amazing and they're all amazing people.
And it
Keep it
airs
good, Liv.
tonight also. So, yay.
Wow. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
April 20th. April 20th. Tuesday, April 20th. Yeah.
Yes. So,
Amazing.
thank you so much for speaking to me.
Thank you.